I just realized my sound was off. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm so happy to be here. We are going to dive into a topic that I am so passionate about for our children. And I am going to just share my screen because I have a wonderful slide deck ready so that we can just dive in. So welcome to Lifestyle Medicine for Autism Spectrum Disorder. This is a powerful success story of mine. So I'm going to share very vulnerably today an evidence-based practice to achieve and reclaim milestones, especially in our nonverbal children. We know that our nonverbal children are in need of extra support because of the lack of communication and everything that goes along with that. So who am I? So my name is Natalie Pelto. I am so happy to be here. Like I said, I did 21 years in healthcare, frontline healthcare, and I currently am teaching now that I'm left healthcare. I now teach in all of the nutrition certifications that I have acquired over the last 8 years. So while I was in healthcare, I always like to joke that I was in diagnostics. So I basically, over the last 21 years, have watched the entire world get sicker in epidemic proportions. And I'll tell you in a few minutes why that's in correlation with autism. And in the meantime, at around 2 years old, that was about 10 years ago, my own son started to all of a sudden speak. And then all of a sudden he started to regress and no longer have words. And this was of no concern to me. He was my first child. And I was very, very lucky that my physician, my GP, was able to notice right away that something was going on. And we started going through our process. Now, what I learned in that time, I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to give you so much value on what you can be empowered with doing at home. Because this is something that I would love to gift moms, because this is part of the process that I found very frustrating going through my autism journey, was that I felt like I didn't have a huge part in it. I didn't know what to do after my son came home from therapy. I didn't feel that I could replicate what they were doing or have the tools that they had. And this, when I found out about lifestyle medicine, and back then I didn't have a name for it, but when I found out that lifestyle could have any type of impact in autism and in their health, and in turn, their cognitive function, it completely changed the game for me, because this was something that I could do at home. And so I became extremely involved in my education for multiple different nutritional certifications. I have certifications in nutritional therapy, advanced child brain development with nutrition. This is the one that really opened up my eyes to how much impact we could have on our kids on the spectrum with just nutrient capacity, gut restoration, and toxicology and detoxification. So I've gone through a lot of education. I continue to do so. I have about 8, and I'm going into my clinical nutritionist certification right now. So this is how it started for me. And I know that many of you will kind of see yourselves within my story. So I'm going to do the short version of it. But it started with a girl who lived in the Western world and really had no idea that there was health outside of healthcare. And I was at that time about in my 10th year of working in CT, X-ray, angiography, and really knowing the inside of the human body, but from a very different perspective than what I do now. It started with me going to a pediatrician visit after my son was no longer speaking, thinking I was going in there for a speech therapy referral, only to be told that my pediatrician thought she was almost 100% sure that my son was going to be a nonverbal autism case. And then it also started with a lot of failures. I also look at these as learning opportunities. I teach this all the time with moms in my program, that there are no failures, because success is just someone sitting over top of a large pile of failures. And a mental mindset shift that I had to change, not just the way that I was physically living, but also how I was mentally thinking about the world around me and health and healing. So this is a little bit about the messy middle of what autism was for us. My son was severely nonverbal. He counted as a 5 on the severity scale, which is considered in Canada or in Northern Ontario 10 years ago as the worst. possible, severity. He ran away from me. This was really frightening. I'm sure many of you guys will see yourselves woven through that story. One day we were in a parking lot, for example, and he almost got hit by a car because he just escaped my hand. The stimming never really bothered me. That wasn't really something that was on my radar, but it's the obsessions. My son was obsessed with just two very specific toys. He was not allowed to bring them to daycare. And so the obsessions, and then also in the transition to daycare, left meltdowns every single day. Every day, I pretty much left there crying, to the point where I told my husband he had to do it. He had to bring my son to daycare to try just to socialize him before school. He was fully non-communicative at 5 years old. I was actually just going through the other day one of his little booklets, because the AAC machine in Canada, if you didn't know, it takes 4 years today to get. So once you have a diagnosis, which is 2 years in the process currently, up to 24 months, they then tell you that it could take up to 4 years to qualify for an AAC. To me, that is such a huge time bracket where you're missing communication with your child. And so for us back then, with a little bit less time, it was 6 months to a year. And so he was fully non-communicative. So it was really frustrating. It was really hard. I had to learn the language of his body because it was horrifying. At one point, I remember to be fully vulnerable, like he had what they call kissing tonsils, which is when the throat is so swollen with infection that they actually can't swallow. And he tried to take a sip of medication to reduce inflammation, and he couldn't even swallow, and he started choking, and I had to rush him to emerge. He broke his arm and was not able to communicate that with us, what was wrong. These were all things that happened in just such a short span of time. Constant chest infection, constant illness. He was constantly on antibiotics. And I felt like I never knew what to do. I felt like I was never doing enough. I felt like therapy, I was dropping him off at therapy and going and trying to learn, but that I would get home and not know what to do. He had no friends and no social interactions. He would walk aimlessly in the schoolyard for days, every day. And then the truth is that, like most moms, I felt like my heart was broken, and that my own motherhood, of the vision of what I wanted and expected in motherhood, had been stripped away. So how is it going now? Because I know that sounds a little bit doom and gloom, but the truth is it doesn't have to be. And that's why I'm here today. This is why I speak internationally and everywhere about what I discovered and what I do and what I continue to learn about. And the truth is that my son is currently so high functioning. He was actually fully verbal and conversational by 7. He doesn't even qualify currently for a diagnosis, and he does not have one. He lives a life of independence, joy, love, connection, and fulfilling relationships. He is very popular. He is one of the most loved kids anywhere. He's 13 now. He has a social life that is bigger than mine, and I'm sure you could tell that I'm a bit of a social butterfly. I have absolutely no fear in, sharing and talking. He's academically brilliant and physically loves sports, which was such an interesting thing to me, because he used to get D in his gym class, and now he does basketball and he does all of these different sports like badminton. He's extremely physically active. He used to bump into things and have no spatial resolution. That has all cleared up. He's an empathic leader, and his teachers describe him as such. He helps his classmates thrive by helping them after he's done his own schoolwork. And he participates in as many learning opportunities as possible. He is the one who is always raising his hand and wanting to be part of the process of learning. So big change, right? From someone who could not even answer to his own name, not even take any type of receptive direction, to where we are today. So what is the secret to our success story? And the truth is that at the time, I didn't really know how to describe it, except for that it had to do with lifestyle. And then I went and did my lifestyle medicine certification with my business partner, who is a physician. And now physicians can actually be board certified in the specialty, which she is. And it was like my mind was blown. Because the truth is that everything aligned in that moment. When I completed that certification, I learned so much about that it wasn't just about nutrition. And there is a lot of data currently about the microbiome and nutrition and autism, but it's so much more than that. So today I'm going to dive into each of the medicine pillars and give you guys the most amazing actions that you guys can dive into at home right away with your children and feeling like you have something that you have the power and control over. So what is it anyways? What is lifestyle medicine? It's a medical specialty that uses therapeutic lifestyle interventions as a primary modality to treat chronic conditions. And although right now, lifestyle medicine is used for adults, diabetes, cancers, and many other lifestyle illnesses that are plaguing our adult communities and our chronic illnesses, it's actually pouring into our kids. And I'm happy to report that I have definitely seen this grow, and it's very exciting. We have a pediatrician in Toronto who has specialized in lifestyle medicine. And I think it's just so amazing. So for me, when I did this certification, I realized that this was exactly what we did. And I had a name for what we did now. But at the time I didn't when I started my journey. So now all the dots connected. So what is lifestyle medicine? So, you kind of have a rough idea, but here are all the different aspects of it. And the truth is that now, as I started to implement this with a lot of the moms that I was working with, it's basically a simple, repeatable process that support our children's body through the recalibration of chemistry, rebalancing minerals, naturally and intentionally helping our kids build brilliant brains intentionally for a better tomorrow. There's a misconception that we do not have impact on our child's brain, but the truth is that I was mind blown just in my advanced child brain development program when I learned that you could increase your child's academic scoring just with specific nutrients that they could be eating from food. Mind blown, but we don't know this. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why it's changed over the years. So what are the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine? I teach them a little bit differently than a lot of people because obviously I work with kids, but filling the nutrition gaps. So nutrition is one of the lifestyle medicine pillars. It's also a very important one when we're dealing with autism because sensory and picky eating is very prevalent. About 90% of kids start off their autism journey as a picky eater. And I want to, I shouldn't say picky, also sensory, but I want to say that there is this misconception that the sensory eating that is caused by autism causes the picky eating. This is actually not true. Being a picky eater causes sensory processing disorder and actually impacts the severity of autism. We are kind of thinking about it backwards because the more that you address nutrient capacity and child brain development foods are brought in, that sensory processing gets better and picky eating goes away. And guess what goes away with it? Severity and cognitive function increases. So it's amazing. So filling in the nutrition gaps is absolutely crucial. And it doesn't matter if, I don't want to say it that way. What matters though, is that our children who are suffering, especially in the severe side of the spectrum, they are still human. And I like to word it this way, is they are still human beings. They are beautiful human beings with so much potential. And human beings still need nutrient capacity. And currently, if I were to vulnerably share all that my son used to eat, just to be fair, was chicken fingers, grilled cheese, and French fries. So please do not feel like I'm a magical unicorn who was just blessed with a child on the severe end of the spectrum with autism that just wasn't a picky eater. No, he was also very sensory stimulated. So anything mashed potato-ish, he would gag on. I remember the first time that we trialed one ingredient, he literally threw up. So please don't think that it's impossible. It's just, there's a process to it. There is a framework to overcoming sensory eating, which you can do at home. I teach about it within my program. I won't have time to teach about it today. Maybe someday they'll have me back and I can teach all about picky eating. But for today, nutrition is the first pillar. The second pillar is about getting rid of the bad bugs. In adults, they look at it as risky substance abuse. So this looks like tobacco use, alcohol abuse, and recreational drugs. But for our kids, they have a much different exposure to the world because the man-made chemicals that we've created in the last 100 years are actually very, very harsh on their bodies because their detoxification systems have actually not evolved yet. We used to think that if a child was born, they were like a clean slate. They had the best detoxification system ever. But the truth is, it's actually a system that actually gets better the more micro exposures it has. And so as an adult, you actually potentially have a better detoxification system than your child. And so toxic load is a huge component, and it is the second pillar. And I'll dive into each of these a little deeper moving forward. The third is better than a baby. We know that 54% of autistic kids actually don't sleep well. It's just a fact. Whether they're waking, they're not falling asleep, they're fighting sleep, they get up at 4 a.m. and then they're up for the day, or they're constantly waking at night. These are the three different components that I see with children coming into the program. And the truth is there is so much body restoration happening during sleep time. There is an entire other detoxification system that we just newly discovered that happens during sleep that we are missing out on when our kids aren't sleeping well. And I'll dive into that a little bit deeper after. And then, of course, connection and longevity. Something that I know that autistic parents, I see the meme all the time, and you may be watching this and like, oh yeah, that's so true. I feel exactly like that. The meme that says it's easy. Sometimes you know you're the parent of an autistic child when it's easier to stay home than it is to go out. That actually has a huge impact in our lifestyle and our ability to adapt to new situations. Bye-bye meltdowns is all about building resilience. So we know that meltdowns is a huge component, and building resilience is just a fancy way of saying learning about stress, self-regulation within the body, and understanding how connected a mother and our child can be. And so it also involves like really powerful parenting and conscious parenting, I guess it's called now. And for parents sometimes to even be so involved in the process that they have to unlearn some of the parenting skills they were taught. And then, of course, lastly, it's physical activity. I like to also meld it with playing in the dirt. Physical activity and gut microbiome health are interconnected for me, because the microbiome is not just within our bowels. It is everywhere. It is in our eyeballs. It is in our mouth. It is on our skin. And so let us dive a little deeper into each of these wonderful topics where you can feel empowered to do things at home. So filling the nutrition gaps and getting smart instead of sassy. So this to me is kind of an interwoven system because children's brain development needs some extra nutrients that are a little bit different than adults in different ratios. The truth is, when I used to present this, and I've obviously presented this a few times, it's that grocery stores, I used to like have this big note that said the grocery store is the enemy. And that's actually not true. The grocery store can be the enemy or it could be your friend. It's just that we no longer have the knowledge to go into the grocery store and know what is the friend or the enemy. And I'll explain a little bit about this, and it's not to poo-poo on our world. That's not my goal with this training at all. The grocery store ratios favor brain development foods prior to over 20 years ago. When I say that, what I mean is that the grocery store, if you went before zoodles were invented, you were likely getting foods that were going to support proper brain development. You would have the foods that would give you good receptor sites, have a nice clear amygdala, and not have a whole bunch of toxins that are blocking messaging going into the brain. So what happened? Well, zoodles were invented. I'm just kidding. I'm not poo-pooing on zoodles either. I used to eat them all the time. Yes, they did have an impact on me. That was negative. But there's a lot of things that were invented. High fructose corn syrup. We started to create meals that made our lives much easier. And I mean, we're all grateful for faster meals and ease, except at the cost of our brain development. We just didn't know exactly the impact that it would have. And so currently, what used to have, our grocery stores used to have, 90% of the food in there was going to support proper brain development for our kids. Now it's about the opposite. It's about 10%. How do you know which is which? Right? How do you know? Well, we obviously know the fruits and vegetables are there, but when you look at all the aisles, and I'm sure you may have heard this fancy trick of, if you want to buy foods that are really supportive, make sure to shop the perimeter. But some people don't know that still. Actually, lots of people don't know that. And that means that shopping in the perimeter, which is the outside of the grocery store, will yield a much better result for proper brain development. That's just an easy little hack. But the outside of the grocery store, there's like a million aisles in between, right? So the health food aisle still has chips, and chips, no matter if they're made from real potatoes and they're deep fried, they're still not healthy. So just be aware that some parts of the health food aisle are okay and some parts are not. But let's not dive too deeply into that. It is important just for us to have an awareness that when the grocery store changed, we didn't get extra education on this. moms weren't told it's not good to give your child 3 chocolate bars, because at the time chocolate bars were kind of this really good commodity that were promoted via commercials. And so we learned through visual and stimulation that these were good. Anyways, that's a whole other story. I'm not going to get into that, but ideally the grocery store has changed. We never got the education. Now, nutritional deficiencies are linked to all diseases to date and conditions. There are some links at the end of this presentation. You are more than welcome to screenshot it. Everything I'm telling you guys is actually based in good data. But nutritional deficiencies are linked to all diseases and illnesses to date. Our body is not able to work or function optimally. Our detoxification system is not able to work optimally. Our liver cannot work optimally. Our brain cannot work optimally. Our lungs cannot work optimally. You kind of get the drift if the nutrients aren't there to provide it to function, because we literally are what we eat. And you may have heard that. Sometimes we don't really understand what that means, but the truth is that every piece of food that you consume is actually being redistributed throughout the body in vitamins and minerals that make you work. We are extremely, as a society, plant deficient. Most people love either meat and potatoes, just meat, or they're focusing on processed foods, very minimal in meat. And we know now that eating predominantly plants or plant-rich is what's feeding the microbiome. We'll dive into microbiome talk soon, but because I know that that's a really hot topic in autism. I have a lot of education in that as well. But for now, let's just leave it there that we are very plant deficient as a society. Almost all autism children are picky or sensory eaters and do not consume the needed 35 to 50 diverse plants a week to feed a thriving microbiome. Yes, you heard me, 35 to 50. If you were to go get, for example, if you wanted to be someone, and if you have a child with autism, you've probably looked at a whole bunch of different ways of supporting them. You may have even looked at fecal transplants. In order for you to qualify for a fecal transplant, you need to guarantee that your child will eat 50 diverse plants, because otherwise it will be unsuccessful. Okay, so I know there's probably some people going, oh my gosh, so first, let's just dive into what plants constitute, like what it could be. It's not just fruits and vegetables. It actually includes nuts and seeds. It includes whole grains. It includes, yes, fruits and vegetables, but it has many pulses, legumes. There's a lot in there. So what is the next pillar, which is talking about toxicity? Now, we know now there is lots of data. I mean, there was a 2014 study that I just came across and I was like, why is this not more prevalent? Or why are we not talking about these very robust studies that are showing that chemical toxicity, heavy metal toxicity, mycotoxin toxicity are impacting our kids because they have this huge vagus nerve, right? Or the vagus nerve for them is more open because of the microbiome, where toxicity has such a much bigger impact into brain development. And so people assume, though, that toxicity is this thing that comes from a huge exposure like Fukushima, Hiroshima bombs. But really the truth is that we have micro exposures of toxicity every single day, almost in some cases every minute of every day. There are some staggering studies that show that the average woman will put 500 chemicals on her face or her body before she leaves the house. Now think about this. If a woman is doing this and a woman is the one giving birth to a child, the WHO has also done a study that shows that the umbilical cords of thousands of umbilical cords tested have actually tested for 200 to 300 chemicals on average for our kids. That means that our children are actually being exposed to this type of toxicity in the womb. And a large component of these are neurodevelopmental toxins. And one of the things that bothers me about it is there are many studies right now where they are proving that autism can happen within the womb, and that to them it solidifies that it is a genetic anomaly. But if there are over 300 chemicals coming through an umbilical cord, can they really prove that? It's just an interesting topic. And it's just something that needs to, in my opinion, be explored on a deeper scale. Now, where are we getting toxic exposures? We get them from chemicals. I said that. So we can get them from baby wipes, and I'll dive a little bit deeper. I just actually did a post for one of these on my Instagram, but baby wipes, floor cleaner, fragrances, tea tree, lavender, things that we think are possibly good, right? And then we also have the things like antimony that our children's clothes is being dipped in as a flame retardant, their crib bedding, their cribs. Everything has some form of protection these days, which is, yes, good, because we don't want it to catch on fire. But it's also a thing that we're seeing kids test higher and higher for when they do HTMAs. Parasites. We live in a very first world country. We have great options for food, but our food is changing. And parasites are becoming much more prevalent in our world. Mycotoxins also fall in the range of candida. We know there's tons of studies that show that candida is very elevated in our kids with autism specifically. And so, as you can see, it's not just one place. Now, we have heavy metals that are very popular right now in talking about autism, and it does make sense. I mean, our brain is very susceptible to absorption of heavy metals. We know there are studies showing that mercury is higher in children with autism than neurotypical kids. Why is that? Where are we getting this type of exposure? Why are 2-year-olds testing high for aluminums and mercuries? There are many reasons, actually, and they are not all what a lot of people say. So although that, yes, there are micro exposures through many of the areas that people post all over social media, there's also exposures in aluminum foil. There's also exposures of a food grade mercury that is sometimes dipped in in our high fructose corn syrup. The corn is dipped in a mercury solution in some cases. And so it's not that we're getting one big exposure in one area, is what I'm trying to get at. It's that the world is now just very riddled with micro exposures that we can easily say that one dose of it is safe. But then when you look at all the other places that we're being exposed to it, it does have impact. And if you have a detoxification system that is not robust like an adult, then the toxic bucket gets full very quickly. And it impacts brain development and gut microbiota very quickly, especially as gut microbiota is being formed, which is between the ages of 1 to 3 years old. So there was a study that's actually really interesting that was done for kids both with autism and Parkinson's, where they noticed that their glutathione production was extremely depleted and they tested almost at 0. Now, glutathione is a fancy word. Some of you guys are like, wow, she's talking another language. Don't worry, it's an antioxidant. And antioxidants are kind of like the big rage right now. I can tell you they're not going to go away because we make them. So it's not like when you see the word antioxidant food, it is not the food that is it's not the food that has that antioxidant in it, but it does promote your liver to create an antioxidant cell that will help to support a damaged cell. And glutathione, that big word, is one very specific type of antioxidant that is very supportive to our body. And if kids with autism are testing with none of it in there, it means that they are more naturally prone to specific types of illnesses that are very damaging to the cell. And so we want to make sure that they have exposure. Now, you can get these from food. Glutathione, eating things like avocado or eating things like grapefruit are absolutely supportive to creating more glutathione. Things you have in your house. This is the misconception. We need supplementation. We need this. I do not actually teach supplementation. I find that food is key, and I'll share why that is. Food is key because it has, no matter what, a multi-dimensional approach. You will never get the same result from something that has been removed and cloned from nature or separated from its complete counterpart. So example, if you're getting a supplement of just vitamin A or you're getting a supplement of just vitamin C, it will never be as good as it being in, let's just say, an orange that is impacting both the liver in a supportive way because of limonene, that is feeding the microbiome because of the fibers within it, and that is supporting a healthy moving blood flow and supporting brain development. So as you can see, food will always be king. And I see a lot of people focus heavily on supplementation with autism right now. And the truth is that what happens when those supplements go away, right? What happens when you don't have access to them for some reason or another? And with the rates of autism, if there's one that's really good right now, you know that they're usually sold out. So the truth is that food is key. And if you have not laid the foundations of overcoming sensory or picky eating, all resources should be going to that space, because you will get and yield results much faster because of the complexity of food and its ability to hit many different organs and systems within the body all at once. Better than a baby. So we know that, again, sleep really does affect our kids, right? We know that 54% of kids with autism don't sleep well. But this is something that can be very impacted by us at home. We do not need to be focusing heavily on sleeping medication. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that melatonin is very popular with autistic kids. I know that there are many things out there, tart cherry juice, all these things. But the truth is that your circadian clock can be supported. Blue lights, for example, from a screen like the one I'm looking at right now, will impact my sleep. Afternoon, for example, I will either wear blue light glasses or I will change the background of my screen to look different, to not be blue. For our kids who are very much so dependent on screens these days, this is impacting their bodies in a way that is very, very in a disservice to their sleep. Because through our circadian clock, which is our exposure to lights, this is so simple, guys. I could talk about sleep for quite some time, but to give you guys the easiest way to hack your circadian clock, give your children light exposure outside during the day in the morning where the sun is going up. Blue lights from the sun are impacting and creating more cortisol within their body, waking them up, getting them moving. That's what we want. And then as the sun goes down and we get more red light and sunset happens, this is again another way. Same with when you turn down the lights in your home. Turning down your lights in your home will actually by default create more melatonin production, which is the capacity. We create our own melatonin. We don't necessarily need to rely on another product, but I mean, in transition, sometimes it's good to have it. But being aware of circadian rhythms is super powerful, and reducing screen time where it impacts GABA, and we now know is linked to severity in autism, which I'll talk about in a second, is actually huge as well. Hacking your sleep environment. Does your child live in chaos? I have a daughter who lives in chaos, and I don't know how, and she does struggle with sleep, and she doesn't want us to clean her room. But I can see why she struggles with sleep living in a room like that, because I would struggle with sleep living in a room like that. So if they have non-minimalistic environments in their room, a room is made for sleeping, there are other rooms that toys can be in. Just to be aware, it impacts their sleep quality. And then, of course, picky eating, which many people don't realize, picky and sensory eating and hyperactivity are exacerbated by lack of sleep. And of course, there's the glymphatic system. This is a brain removal system for neurotoxins. Did you know that? I know most physicians don't even know about it because I often will educate them on it and they love it. There are studies in mice, they discovered that there's an entire other detoxification system that happens at night. This big flush comes through your back, through your spinal fluid, and just flushes all the neurotoxins you've been exposed to during the day, and also supports. We also, through the night, without good sleep, support our stress system. When we dream, we're processing things that have been that we have considered trauma throughout the day, even if it isn't. But that's how we process our feelings. So without having all of these things happen on a regular basis, we're not getting the same impact. I hope that makes sense. So sleep is extremely important. I've given you guys some tips to start today. Hello Friends. So there are two components to Hello Friends and Bye-Bye and Hello Friends and social connections. So this is relationships and social connections. This is actually a picture of my son at the bottom. His name is Dante. He is absolutely lovely. And when he was younger, and this is his little friend. I was privileged to have my best friend have a child 6 months apart from me. And it was a gift because they were a pair. And it allowed him to be around a neurotypical child, and they had a buddy system, and she would just take his hand and drag him around, and he would be more prone or more acceptant of not eloping and hanging out with her than if it was me. And so this social connection, I think, to me, now that I know what I know about relationships and longevity, was crucial to what happened and his results. So we avoid these both because of guilt, both because of fear, both because of annoyance at, sometimes neurotypical moms not really appreciating how easy it can be with their kids. And we avoid situations that put us in the line of fire of those feelings that we get around other neurotypical kids. I know this because I hear it with my moms all the time. It's not judgment that I'm giving out here. It's just awareness. And the truth is, though, is that if you can find safe one-to-one environments that can be offered consistently to your child, you are impacting a different part of the brain than when they teach routine in therapy. And this is a little bit of a frustration of mine with therapy and the focus on government funding for just therapy. And not that it's not important. Please do not think that that's what I'm saying. But with the focus mainly being on therapy, where the focus is constant routine and habits are built in a completely different part of the brain. They are not built where the amygdala is impacted by autism. They are not built by, it's just this focus on habit building. You can be in a car accident, and they've done studies of this. This happened to people where their short-term memory is actually lost and they can only remember for 10 minutes at a time. And they can still be taught to live independently. Why? Because of routine. So, and that is a great thing in those cases. But for our children, what happens when routine is broken? How adaptable would they be if their routine was completely overhauled in one day? And this happens. Divorce happens, accidents happen, that fear of kids or of parents of what happens where they're gonna be gone. And I'll share something with that is a little bit of an eye-opener, and it's very fair, is that, parents of severe nonverbal kids often worry about what will happen when they're gone, but the average life expectancy for children of nonverbal kids is 36 to 39 years old. You will likely outlive your children. And that to me is absolutely horrifying. And this is why I do what I do. This is why I'm so passionate, because I cannot be okay with living in a world knowing that and knowing that there's a different outcome. Now, going back to social media and the dopamine dilemma, dopamine was meant to help us survive in tribal days by giving us hits of this hormone to keep us motivated to keep going when, let's just say, prey was close. And the hunting packs used to see a break of a twig of grass, and they would give them a shot of dopamine. But the thing about dopamine is that there was an end to the dopamine. They would get, let's just say, to get this big prey, and then they would have this huge dose of serotonin, right? Connection, community, this feeling of love and acceptance and support. And the truth is that's not what's happening now. Dopamine, and you might be thinking, well, my child is on screens, but they don't watch social media. If they watch YouTube, they watch social media. So especially with videos that they constantly go to the next one and next one and next one. So those are hits of dopamine. There is no serotonin at the end. There is no feeling of connection. And so it does impact not just that, but also their GABA, which we now know that a study was done that showed that children who watch more than 2 hours of screen time every single day are more prone to severe autism than children who do not. So the numbers are there. I mean, that study was released, it's very new. And I did share the life expectancy of our kids. So the impact, especially to young women with autism, even high functioning, of social media shows elevated rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide. So we really want to get really close. And I actually share lots of free education. I have a free challenge I do at the end of the summer called the Screen Less Challenge, where there's education on these things and then plans. It's really fun. It's by email. So you can always, I can drop it in the comments later. Totally free thing. Bye-bye meltdowns and building resilience. So we're getting towards the end. This is really powerful. And I don't spend as much time on this one for the simple reason that our world right now knows that our kids with autism are dealing with so much stress that they create, they're very hyper-focused on environments for autism and acceptance and inclusion. And I think those are all extremely important. Don't get me wrong, I do. I think that being included is part of relationships and connection. And so the thing though that I'm noticing is this heavy push on external environment support, which I do agree with. But what about the internal environment support? How do we access or support, heart rate variability, self-nervous system regulation for our kids? And I know now there's all these really fun therapies. So those are the ones, if you have the capacity to get your kids in those, you will see changes. But building resilience can be impacted also by all the other pillars I talked about. You build resilience through mindfulness when possible. You build resilience. Our children are so interconnected with their parents, especially their mothers, that just the size of their pupil dilating, it can put a child into fight or flight. And so learning as a parent to self-regulate yourself and to become the calm in the storm, because your child may not know how to self-regulate, and you may not even know how to self-regulate. This is something I teach within my program for sure. But one of the things that all parents will tell you is once they learn to self-regulate, meltdowns are a thing of the past. The capacity that they have to become the calm in the storm begins to create kind of a synergistic effect of their children feeling safer and no longer feeling like they need to almost explode because they are not able to regulate. So sometimes it starts with us. We're just part of the process. We're not the entire process again, but absolutely supportive to changing outcomes like that. Building resilience through nutrition and proper sleep. There are 4 components of nutrients that actually can increase resilience, but also reduce meltdowns. These are the components that will reduce aggression in our kids. Within the program, we talk about it, but potassium is one, zinc is one, magnesium. They're pretty commonly known, even though if you're new to your autism journey, you may not know them. I don't recommend, again, supplementation. Food is king, again, to go back to that. We focus so much, and like I said, we focus so much on the external environment. We need to focus a little bit more on the internal. All right, so let's dive into my favorite topic. And I'm giving myself at least like maybe 5-10 minutes on this one. This is my favorite topic. It's all about playing and feeding the good bugs, exercise in nature, and microbiome exposures. I think Zach Bush did a really great little chat about this, where he was like, get yourself in as many different environments as you can, touch everything, touch the trees and the sand and the grass. And it's true that when we interact with other environments, we actually can proliferate more microbiota. There are 30 trillion of these little bugs within us. And we have roughly, I think we have 30 trillion cells is like the consensus now. I know it changes all the time. And then we have like 39 trillion of these bugs. They have as many human functions. Like I think the running joke, if I remember what Dr. B said, I can never say his name, so I'm not going to massacre it, but he is an internist who specializes in kind of like a lifestyle medicine and gut microbiota. But he says, we're basically like a skin suit that's run by bugs and we just don't know it. It delegates who our partners are, who we choose, or what we're craving. For example, if you have a child who's constantly looking for sugar, even if they're not picky eaters and they're eating a ton of fruits, or they're constantly not satisfied with food, and you feel like they're snacking, that's very common with kids with autism. That often is a lead that they may have candida. This is like what I see clinically. And what happens is that they know now that our microbiota, those bugs, they send out craving signals. They tell us what they want to eat. So if your gut is imbalanced with bad bacteria, what do you think they're going to tell you to crave? The things that feed them, like sugar, or things that convert to sugar. And if you have a balanced bacteria, what do you think it'll tell you to crave? It will be just fine eating fruits and vegetables. Again, so picky eating can be exacerbated. Now, this is usually one of the moments where people get a big aha moment as to how important gut health is. There are 4 messaging pathways from the gut to the brain. People think there's just one, but there are 4. There's blood and microbiota. There's the spinal cord. There's the vagus nerve. And then for some weird reason, the last one's evading me, but I have a post on it on Instagram. You guys go find it. I think I just reshared it recently. But those 4 messaging pathways, what's really interesting about them is that they go directly from the gut to the amygdala, which is the area that is most impacted negatively by autism. The area that people will state that because it impacts the amygdala, we have no change. But the truth is by default, if you were to reduce inflammation from the microbiota and from the gut, if those 4 messaging pathways are leading directly to that area, then you would have, and just so you know, that area controls behavioral processes, memory, and emotions, then you will have a different outcome in your autism journey. This is not just for one person like myself. This is for everyone. And the truth is that all of our kids deserve to have the best outcome for them. They deserve to choose the life to live the life of their dreams. And it's very exciting to me to know that there are so many things that we could do at home. So anti-inflammatory diets are obviously very good. I'm not big on elimination diets. I believe that elimination should be done on rotation and just in under the care of obviously someone who knows what they're doing. But that's not where we live. We live in feeding the microbiota. We live in feeding diversity and having 35 to 50 plants in a week period. So now a lot of people don't realize that movement can have such a big impact on autism as well. So how much movement should a child have? Well, the government says that basically 60 minutes a day. That is not what many of our children are getting. Often they are very sedentary, often tired, often living in brain fog, often on screens. And so giving them that opportunity to have those 60 minutes a day can be life-changing, especially if you could do it in nature and in a safe environment, obviously. So in a nutshell, if you're in nature, you kind of get extra benefits too. Aromatic compounds in nature will support not just the amygdala, but the limbic system. And then you also have the wonders of interacting with other microbiota. So in conclusion, and I'm so grateful for you all that joined me and that hung out with me today, but in conclusion, 1 in 36 8-year-olds have autism as per the CDC. I want to emphasize that a little bit, okay? Because people assume 1 in 36 kids, but it's 1 in 36 8-year-olds. And the truth is that if the process is currently taking 24 months for people to get a diagnosis even, we know that by the delay and by what we're seeing, this is likely a higher number. Many of these children are severe, nonverbal, and non-functioning. It's always sad when I hear that people tell their family members that they should consider institutionalization. And I believe in my current, and this is both in my personal journey and in professional experience with working with clients, is that lifestyle medicine can help these children achieve greater independence, reclaim lost milestones, even speech in many cases, and live the life of their dreams. At the end of the day, it's not really about us. It's about them. It's about their capacity and their need and choices in living a beautiful life. And this is my son, actually, not the little guy. I love that picture, but my son is holding the Lego figure. This is my son now. And the truth is that I am blessed and I am grateful every day for the journey that we did. It was not the most chosen path. The path to health and overcoming picky eating is different, but it was worth it. It was, 2 to 4 long years of change, of building new habits and new lifestyle processes for me too. But the outcome is so worth it. And the truth is that I see the potential in all the nonverbal children I have the privilege of meeting, the independence within reach, because I think that this is one thing that we can all agree on, is that our children deserve the joyful and fulfilling life they can experience to the fullest. Thank you so much. I don't know if I could see a chat. I don't know if there are questions. I don't really know how that works. I'm going to end my talk, but if there are questions, leave them in the comments and I am happy to go back and I will answer them. I will happily share more. If you want to follow me, I believe they're going to put all my links on there. I educate a ton for free. And my mission and vision is to see different outcomes for our kids so that they can live the life of their dreams, but also to support and empower moms at home to feel that they can do things that are going to be even more impactful than bringing their children to someone else and just hoping that when they pick them up or when they bring them back, they will have had some gains. Really, the biggest gains you will see are the ones you do at home. Thank you so much. You have a great day. Oh, and here are my references. If you guys, I hope that you guys can see that. If you can't, I can always just share them later. You guys are more than welcome, but these are all the references on the studies that I quoted, the things that I talked about, and the things that are just true and that are unbiased and not controversial. And so I am so grateful. Thank you so much.